Let's go back in time. The year is 1857, and the city is Glasgow. Imagine a place of booming industry, but also of incredibly strict social rules. And the entire city is absolutely gripped by a trial happening in its high court. This thing has everything: a beautiful young socialite, a secret lover from the wrong side of the tracks, hundreds of scandalous letters, and a truly horrific death by arsenic poisoning. At the very center of this storm is one woman, Madeleine Smith. Just listen to these words. This is Madeleine Smith, writing to the very man she would later be accused of murdering. It's a desperate, terrified plea. This one letter, which was read out loud to a shocked and silent courtroom, it tells you everything about the stakes. She was completely trapped, you see, caught between the life her wealthy family demanded she live and the one she secretly wanted. And as this trial would show the world, that tension was about to explode. So for today's explainer, we're going to put ourselves in the jury box. First, we'll dive into the secret and frankly dangerous affair that started this whole mess. Then, we'll look at the prosecution's case for murder, all the evidence they stacked up against her. After that, we'll see how the defense fought back. And finally, we'll unpack the strange, uniquely Scottish verdict that let her walk free but left everyone wondering. Okay, so let's meet the two people at the absolute heart of this tragedy. On one side, you have Madeleine Smith. She's young, beautiful, and the daughter of a very prominent, very wealthy Glasgow architect. And on the other side, Pierre-Emile Langelier. He's a clerk, originally from the Channel Islands. He's got a lot of charm, but not much else in the way of money or status. You really can't overstate the massive gap between their two worlds. In Victorian Glasgow, society was incredibly rigid. This wasn't just a difference in income, it was a forbidden frontier. She was from the fashionable, high society world of Blythewood Square. He worked as a clerk in a warehouse. For them to even be speaking was improper. To be lovers? Well, that was an explosive secret just waiting to go off. The court discovered over 200 letters between them, and they laid bare the raw intensity of their secret affair. In this one, Madeleine is promising herself to Langelier, body and soul. She calls him her husband. Their letters, filled with a passion that absolutely scandalized the courtroom, described these secret meetings at her bedroom window late at night, stolen kisses, and all these promises of a future they both knew was basically impossible. But, of course, the fantasy had to end. Madeleine's family found a much more suitable match for her, a wealthy man from her own social class named William Minnick. When Madeleine tried to break things off with Langelier and desperately asked for her letters back, he flat out refused. He threatened her. He said he would go to her father and show him every last letter, exposing their entire affair. And just like that, her secret lover became a blackmailer. He was now a threat to her reputation, her engagement, her entire future. And for the prosecution, this was the moment a motive for murder was born. All right, so how did the prosecution, the Crown, build its case against this young woman? Well, for them, the evidence seemed to form this perfect, damning chain of events. A chain so logical, so clear, that it could only lead to one conclusion: cold-blooded murder. You have to admit the prosecution's timeline was just devastating. Look at this. On 2 different days, February 21st and March 6th, Madeleine Smith, a respectable young lady, goes to a local chemist and buys arsenic. She signs the poison register and says it's for killing rats at the family home. Then, on March 21st, she writes Langelier a sweet, affectionate letter asking him to come to her window that night. Just 2 days later, he's found dead. For the prosecution, that was it. Case closed. Now, forensic science was still pretty new back then, but it gave the prosecution its most powerful piece of evidence. A chemist, Dr. Frederick Penny, examined the contents of Langelier's stomach, and what he found was absolutely staggering: 88 grains of arsenic. Now, to give you some perspective, just 2 or 3 grains is a lethal dose. This wasn't some tiny accidental amount. This was a massive, deliberate poisoning that would have caused an agonizing death. And this is the note that really sealed it for the public. It was found in Langelier's pocket after he died. The prosecution held it up as the lure, the bait in the trap. He gets this loving invitation, he goes to meet her, and just a few hours later, he's dead. So now the Crown has everything, right? They've got a motive, blackmail. They have the means, the arsenic she bought with her own signature. And with this letter, they had the opportunity. The net was closing in tight. But the defense, led by a truly brilliant lawyer named John Inglis, they had a very different story to tell. Their strategy was clever. It wasn't really to prove that Madeleine was innocent. It was to prove that the prosecution's seemingly perfect case was built on nothing but speculation. Their goal was to introduce just one thing: reasonable doubt. The defense started by essentially putting the victim on trial. The prosecution had presented Langelier as this poor, respectable man who was wronged by a heartless woman. But the defense brought witness after witness who painted a very different picture. A picture of a man who was vain, obsessed with his romantic conquests, and prone to wild, melodramatic, and frankly, emotionally unstable behavior. And here was the heart of their argument. They suggested an alternative theory: suicide. They showed the jury that Langelier had a documented history of threatening to kill himself whenever a romance went south. After another woman had jilted him, a witness saw him literally pick up a knife to stab himself. He wrote letters to friends talking about blowing his brains out. The defense was planting a crucial seed of doubt, asking the jury, isn't it just as likely that this volatile, heartbroken man, facing the ultimate rejection, poisoned himself? And this, right here, was the giant fatal hole in the prosecution's case. For all their evidence, the scandalous letters, the arsenic purchases, the perfect timeline, they could not find a single person, not one witness, who actually saw Madeleine and Emile together on that fateful night. There was zero direct proof that the meeting she invited him to ever actually happened. The defense jumped all over this, and in a brilliant move, they used the prosecutor's own words to do it. The Lord Advocate, the head prosecutor, in his final speech, was forced to admit that the most critical link in his entire case, the actual meeting where the poison was supposedly given, was, in his own words, a matter of conjecture and inference. And in a trial for your life, conjecture just isn't good enough. So after 9 incredible days of testimony that had the whole country talking, the jury of 15 men went to make their decision. And they were in a tough spot. You had a really strong circumstantial case on one side, but a really strong argument for reasonable doubt on the other. And so they turned to a legal verdict that you'll only find in Scotland. So in most places you have guilty or not guilty, but Scottish law has a third option: not proven. It's sometimes called the bastard verdict. Legally, it's an acquittal. The person walks free, they can't be tried for that crime ever again. But morally, it leaves a cloud of suspicion that never goes away. It's the jury's way of saying, you know, we think you probably did it, but the prosecution didn't give us enough proof to say so for sure. And that's what the jury chose: not proven. Madeleine Smith walked out of that courtroom a free woman, but for the rest of her life she was known as the woman who got the not proven verdict. The decision really was the perfect reflection of the trial itself. You had a clear motive, and you had the poison, but you couldn't prove that final, crucial moment when it was administered. And so we're left with the exact same question they had back in 1857. Was Madeleine Smith a cunning, cold-blooded murderer who used love letters to lure a man to his death because he became inconvenient? Or was she a desperate young woman trapped by a suffocating society, blackmailed by a volatile lover, and ultimately just a victim of tragic circumstance? The evidence points in both directions, but the final definitive proof just isn't there. It left the jury with only one real option, and it has left one of Scotland's greatest mysteries forever: not proven.